Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the Suzanne Morphew case, which is about a 49-year-old woman, mother of two, who disappeared on Mother's Day 2020, and the evidence presented in the preliminary hearing of her husband, Barry Morphew. Before I continue with the evidence presented at the preliminary hearing, I want to mention two things in particular. Firstly, I am not here rooting for Barry Morphew or plead his case. I don't know him and do not have any intention of ever getting to know him. I am, after all, a whole continent or two away. Nor am I here to hurt Suzanne Morphew's reputation. I never knew her and most likely will never get the opportunity to get to know her. I'm here to discuss with you the evidence presented so far, which in my opinion was not solid enough to ensure a conviction at trial. I'm also here because I believe that there is nothing as frustrating as to still have questions unanswered once a trial has reached its conclusion. I'm here because, for the sake of every innocent person out there, we need to make sure that the right person does time for the crime. Secondly, there was a very valid question or comment in the comment section of the previous video, and it was indeed something I did not address in part 1. The comment concerned the $100,000 reward money Barry proposed for information on Suzanne's whereabouts. It is the opinion of some people that Barry did so as he knew his money was safe and that Suzanne would never be found. I beg to differ on this, or at least propose a different idea or thought or possibility. We know that the nephew started a GoFundMe and that they did collect money. Thus, it is my opinion that possibly Barry never intended to pay the full amount out of his own pocket. We also know that there was a $20,000 donation. However, no matter how Barry would have collected the money or where the money would come from, money is always an incentive to provide information, and it would have been a huge risk for Barry to offer a reward. If it was thus his intention to purely make himself look more innocent, it was indeed a huge risk to take. Okay, so now with all of that out of the way, let us tackle the evidence presented at the preliminary hearing. On the first day, Barry was represented by his defense attorneys, Drew Nielsen and Iris Eaton, and others. The first witness was Commander Alex Walker, who works for the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office. Commander Walker explained how Mallory Morphew could not get hold of her mother to wish her a happy Mother's Day. According to Walker, Mallory reached out to a neighbor. Now what I'll do is I will stop briefly and give you my opinion after each piece of evidence. Now this becomes rather confusing in later evidence where it is said that she phoned her father Barry. However, I've made a note of this as the first discrepancy in the evidence, and I'm not sure whether it is of any significance in the actual disappearance of Suzanne, but to me it would be a natural thing to do to phone the other parent first if you cannot get hold of one. They may be together, or they may have made arrangements that you, as a child, may not be aware of. I personally would find it slightly odd if Mallory did phone the neighbor before she contacted her father. However, later evidence would propose that Barry did speak to the neighbor and suggested they look whether the bicycle was there. Okay, moving on. Walker explains that a Deputy Brown found the bicycle shortly after they were notified of Suzanne's disappearance. The deputy did switch on his body cam when he got to Highway 50 and County Road 225, and he noted no blood, no skid marks, no brake marks, no struggle, and no damage to the bicycle. I found this a little confusing as well, as later there's actually mention of minor damage. The deputy then asks someone to call the hospital and starts yelling for Suzanne as he approaches the bike. He then moved the bike off the hillside and then laid the bike back down. The deputy also asks for Barry to be called to describe the bike. The bike is then confirmed to belong to Suzanne, navy with light blue pedals. Then the deputy notices something wrong with the front tire and decides to bring the bike back up to the county road, and he then handles the bike without gloves. Although him handling the bike without gloves, in my opinion, it's not the right and professional thing to do, it is clear that at that point they were convinced that there was an accident of some kind. And at a later stage, the deputy's fingerprints could be excluded from the others on the bicycle. So, in my opinion, although it was a mistake, maybe a rookie mistake, it was not a devastating mistake. Commander Walker himself was at the scene when the deputies found the bike. He also admitted that there were a lot of people on the road and that the scene was not taped off. Now, I would like to know what Commander Walker, who is obviously a more experienced law enforcement official, what his excuse would be for not taping the area off. Anyway, moving on. Miles Harvey, one of the daughter's boyfriend, was coming out of the garage when deputies arrived at the Morphew home. He told deputies that he noticed that Suzanne's car was home, but her bike was gone. He told deputies that Suzanne usually took her car when she goes mountain biking. Okay, I find this a little odd as they live in a very rural area surrounded by dirt roads and trails. But who knows, maybe Suzanne had a favorite place to cycle in. Miles and his father described the places where Suzanne usually cycled and what she would typically wear. Again, I find it odd that the deputies did not ask Miles Harvey how he gained access to the garage. Was it open or was it closed but unlocked when him and his father got there? Was it Suzanne and Barry's habit to leave it open or unlocked? Or did Miles and his father or Miles and his family have a key? The deputy asked Miles what Barry and Suzanne's relationship was like, and Miles responded that they had problems and had talked about separating, and that he knew this through Macy. So firstly, I assume that Miles is or was Macy's boyfriend. Secondly, I find it odd that the deputies asked Miles about Barry and Suzanne's relationship so early in the game, particularly because the actual scene where the bike was found was treated like an accident scene. And at this point, it is still quite possible that the bike could have been stolen, or even that Suzanne might have fallen and was in town or another neighbor's home being patched up. Barry arrived at the scene where the bike was found more or less at 8:46 p.m. He is seen and heard on body cam asking, "Where is the bike? Was there a crash?" The deputy described how the bike was found, and Barry responded that it may have flipped. Walker said that Barry and George Davis were touching the bike, and the deputy finally asked people not to touch the bike. There is more conversation between Barry and the deputy, but all of it is pure speculation. They talk about the RV park, a mountain lion, as we all know, and so on and so on, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. A picture of Suzanne is shown in court of Suzanne wearing a light blue helmet and matching jacket with a camelback and sunglasses. The helmet was found on May 15th, 8.4 miles from where the bike was found. The helmet was not damaged, had a piece of paper inside with Suzanne's name, number, and family contact. It was also found 10 meters from the road south on Highway 50. According to Commander Walker's testimony, no blood of Suzanne's was found in the Morphew home. No blood was found in the house throughout the investigation. Mallory's bed sheets were stripped. Barry explained that Mallory's friend, Holly, who was on the camping trip with them, was to stay over that night, and it would have been typical of Suzanne to clean the room before they arrived. Indeed, this later proves to be true, as not only were the sheets found in the washer-dryer, but a memo in Suzanne's handwriting lists wash sheets Mallory on her to-do list. Then there was an explanation by Walker about the search for Suzanne, discussing the area using drones, the number of people they utilized, etc., etc. Again, that is a very long piece of investigation and questioning, and I think a lot of that is already known or can be found readily on the internet. The house was under investigation for 10 days the first time and was handed back to the Morphews on May 20th. When the investigators first took possession of the house on May 10th, Barry was not given a chance to change his clothes or get anything from the house. More than 110 search warrants were issued, and the first one was served on the Morphew home and vehicles on May 11th. On July 10th, 18 law enforcement officers and 10 FBI, all in all 28 officers, including Commander Walker, came back to the house, and the search was described by Walker as thorough and extensive. According to Walker, it was during one of these searches that the voice-activated spy pen was found in a drawer full of Suzanne's bras. Barry did not know about the spy pen. It was confirmed that it belonged to Suzanne Morphew by her friend Sheila, who said that Suzanne told her about getting the pen as she suspected that Barry was having an affair. Now let us stop here for a moment. Walker did say that regardless of everything they searched and everyone they spoke to, they found no evidence that Barry had an affair. It was, however, found that Suzanne had been having an affair for 2 years. With Walker still on the stand, a recording of an interview with Jeff Libler was played. Jeff Libler being the man who Suzanne was having an affair with. Suzanne did not tell anyone about the affair, and Libler did not come forward to law enforcement by himself. Law enforcement found him in November last year. Libler and Suzanne met up 6 times, twice in Indiana. After a break, Walker was questioned about Barry Morphew's truck. Walker said it was quite messy, and Walker said that there was no evidence that the Bobcat was in any way involved in Suzanne's disappearance. This was followed by prosecution and defense going over the log of activity of Barry's truck. For example, when the doors opened and closed. And once again, I'm not going to go into that right now. Very interesting, and what I do want to spend time on as far as Walker's testimony is concerned is the information on the missing DDR cables. The cables were found by law enforcement and swabs were taken from them. DNA from Barry, Mallory and Macy were excluded on the grey S cable, but Suzanne's DNA was likely found on the cable. How they can say it was likely Suzanne's DNA, I'm not sure. Either they know it was her DNA or they don't, but never mind. A mixture of two DNA samples were found on the power cable, Suzanne's and again an unknown male DNA. Now on the subject of DNA, DNA was also found on the glove box of Suzanne's Range Rover. Again, the DNA of an unknown male. In this case, a hit was made on this DNA with someone with 3 sexual assaults. Now, I've received questions, people asking me, okay, if a hit was made on someone with 3 sexual assaults, why haven't they brought this guy in and why haven't they questioned him? Well, it doesn't mean they know who this person is. It just means that they found the same DNA at 3 crime scenes where sexual assaults took place. It doesn't mean that someone had been arrested for those assaults and is now on record. I don't know, but that is what I assume. Now, it's not clear whether the male DNA on the glove box matched with the DNA on the bike or the cables, or whether the DNA found on the bike, the cables, and the glove box were from 3 different individuals. The point is that these 3 crucial DNA finds, and personally, I do find the DNA on the bike and the cables in particular very crucial. Yes, I'm not ignorant and it can all be explained away. The DNA on the bike handles could be from someone who touched it while it was having new tires fitted. The DNA on the cables could be from someone who fitted or repaired the surveillance system. Although in this case the previous owners admitted to having it installed while they owned the property, and therefore I think the DNA from an installer would have been damaged or destroyed by the time of Suzanne's disappearance. The DNA on the glove box could be from someone at a car wash or at a service station or at a mechanic shop, but in totality it appears strange. It provides reasonable doubt when looking at Barry as a perpetrator. Okay, folks, once again, I'm going to leave it right here for now. In part 3, we'll look at the second day's evidence and we'll talk about the psychology and dynamics in the Morphew family. Thank you for listening, and I hope we'll see you on here again soon. Take good care of yourselves and bye.